Okay, so today we rebuild the rear shock for Fred. This is Fred, 02 YZ250, two-stroke, and as you can see I've got the shock body, or the shock itself, completely torn down. Everything's been cleaned. Here's the shaft. See some damage down there where the shock bumper lives. The old bumper was just disintegrated, and so I got a new bumper, and the bumper will cover that up. And I don't ride this bike a whole lot, so I'm not too worried about it, to be honest with you. I've cleaned everything, and before I start reassembly of the shock, let me show you what I've done here. I've laid out all the shims. And these have been here for a few months, since Christmas, I believe. It's now mid to late April. But anyway, I've got everything laid out and marked with their sizes and everything. And it's going to be a bit of a chore to put this back together since it's been so long since I took it apart. As for the valving, I thought about revalving the shock, but frankly I'm broke as a joke and can't afford to, and I'm tired of having this torn down, and this bike's not the one I ride regularly anyway. That would be the 2012 KTM 250 SXF that I ride on the regular. Of course, I haven't ridden in nearly a year. Yeah, depression's a mofo. Anyway, trying to get back at it, regain some semblance of normality to my life. Anyway, I guess time to put the shock back together. Peace outside. Set the glue on first. Like a glove. It is how we do it. Alrighty, gonna put the seal head on now. When I put the bumper on, there was a little bit of debris from the bumper around here, so I cleaned that off as good as I could. I don't have a seal bullet, which would protect the seal head when you're installing it on the shock. So in lieu of a seal bullet, I'm gonna use a small piece of packing tape to protect the seal when I install it on this shaft. That should be plenty long enough. Now this is done just lovely. That shouldn't matter. This is done to protect the seal from this sharp edge here. You don't want to destroy the seal when you're installing it. This is the old seal, I'm not even replacing it, but still better safe than sorry. All this dust on everything. Goodness gracious. I'll put a little bit of oil on the shaft and on the seal itself. I've already cleaned it all with mineral spirits. This will ensure that it slides down easy and that it's not installed dry. That should be good. Alright. Before I put the seal head on, I need to put the end cap on. Like so. Now for the piece de la resistance. This tape makes the shaft a little bit bigger. What? I'm gonna have to redo that tape. Just a moment. Round 2. Fight! Reinstalled the tape. Feels like I may have done even worse of a job this time. You know what? Forget it. Having to force it too much and it's tearing the tape where the sharp edge is. So what say ye? Let's remove the tape. Easier said than done. Oh, now there's a nice bit of residue on there. So I'll clean that up first. Okay, So I got all the residue cleaned up, used a little mineral spirits and a shop rag. I'm just going to install this thing without any tape and just hope for the best. Seems to me that this is the way it goes for most of us. For me anyways, I try to do something, you know, the safe way, and it never works out. The tape is too thick, and the seal head won't go on without destroying the tape as it puts itself on, and then you risk getting the tape stuck up in the seal head, and you know, next thing you know, the universe implodes. So let's try this again. Just put a little wall in the shaft. Just hope for the best. I've done this plenty of times before, never had any issues, so hopefully this will just be another one of those times. One thing to note is this little hole here. Your rebound rod runs through there, and it also has a little hole in there. It's supposed to line up with this hole, and if that thing gets spun around, you know, through your monkeying around with the shock and what have you, it will cause the shock to get stuck in the down position, I believe. So once it compresses, it won't actually rebound. I've had that happen before, and you have to take it all apart and correct the position of that rod, and that's a bit of a doozy. So if it does get turned around, sometimes you can just use a little pick and get in there and just straighten it out so that you can see all the way through that hole. I'd show you with the camera, but right now the camera is rigged up on a cardboard box. It's just my iPhone in a leather case, and it makes it really difficult to set up proper shots. Hopefully one day I'll get a decent camera and a tripod and a microphone and all that good stuff. For now, this will have to do. Very carefully. Don't ever want to twist. If you twist it, pretty much guaranteed you're going to screw it up. Just be very gentle. Go straight down. Boom. Who is your daddy, and what does he do? So that's that on that. Now it could be that the seals, the O-rings, the rubber were a little swollen because I did clean them with mineral spirits. I let it dry for a while, but maybe not all the way. But alas, installation complete. Now we move on to install the shim stack. Okay. Again, I have the camera perched up precariously on a pegboard hook. Anywho's, so here's my shock, the shaft, all the valving. So the way I took this apart is this is the very bottom, so this goes first, and this, and so on up the rows. These are all your compression shims. Then you have the piston, and on top of the piston come the rebound shims, all in this direction. And that's it. Then there's a nut that goes on top. So start with this. Interesting. Rusted a little bit. You know what? That's okay. I got all the rust off there. It looks to me this is sitting just like that. One. Two. Like I said, I wouldn't have mind messing around with revalving this thing, but I got no dinero, and I don't really ride much anymore, or haven't in a while. Pretty much haven't done anything in, I don't know, nearly a year. It's been a bit rough. Haven't had the wherewithal to do much of anything except sit around and try to process things and figure out where I went wrong. But on a side note, today is the first day in a year and a half that I've had any caffeine in the form of a cup of coffee. And without a doubt, I can say that has added to my motivation. And I had these things covered up to keep them clean and still. Lint. But I don't care. I don't care about much at all these days. Now, the piston. Like so. And we continue on. Not much to it. Whatever. Maybe I'll think of something clever to say. I think generally they recommend more rebound shims on the YZs, especially the 2-strokes. This shock has been revalved before, not by me, and it never felt great. But honestly, it's been so long I don't remember what my complaints were with it, so didn't see much point in messing with the valving until I get a feel for what it actually does. If I end up riding it again. I'm sure I will one day, but right now riding is the least of my concerns. I've got to get a job and make some money. I'm an engineer by trade. Worked as an engineer for 10 years and realized that being stuck behind a desk is not something I'm fond of. So I'm trying to find a job now, and hopefully will. So there's your finished stack. Now the only thing I gotta do is put some red Loctite on there and put the nut on top, and that'll be that for the shock. Bushing looks okay. Not perfect, but what is? Alrighty. So get ready for a little red Loctite. Curses. The cap has Loctited itself shut. There we go. What a terrible night for a curse. I realized that there's 1,000 shock assembly videos on the interwebs today. I guess I'm just kind of hoping that you'll want to hang out with me for the conversation. Because there's only one of me, and there's only one of you. And all of creation. My hands are shaky from the coffee. Plus I haven't eaten anything today, and it's like 5 o'clock. That's pretty normal for me. That doesn't feel great. Now, torque to 25 foot-pounds, or pound-feet. There she blows. A hump like a snow hill. Alright, now I guess I get to tackle the high-speed compression adjuster. Put that bad boy back together. Then fill the shock with oil, bleed it, pump the bladder full of nitrogen, and that'll be all she wrote. Time to figure out this high-speed compression damper. Well, it's been a while. It just seems funny. This is an interesting design. It's clearly been modified because it doesn't look like any other high-speed compression adjuster that I've seen in person, so I don't know what's going on with it. I looked on the internet and I didn't see any that were set up quite like this, with this thing here. Looks different, and I don't know if this is a kit or what's going on with it, but nothing. There's nothing after that. Nothing after that but. Don't even know why I said it. Son of a gun. Dropped my spring washer. Pretty sure it came out like that. And then the nut goes on. And I'll probably torque that to 5 or 7 pound-feet. Since it's so small, I'll probably use some blue Loctite on that. It's not uber critical. Now they say you can enlarge these holes. Some only have 6 holes. This one has 8. You can enlarge them, and that will soften the high-speed impacts a good bit. I think the WR shocks are set up like this with 8 holes. So this must be a WR piston, but you could still enlarge the holes a little. And looking at this O-ring, looks like there's a little tear in it right there. So I'll dig into my big blue box O-rings. One of those standard kits you buy. It's rare that it ever fits anything perfectly, but it may do the job. We'll take a look and see. Alright, let's see if we got an O-ring that'll work. Judging by first appearance, I'm going to say no, because this is very thin, and these O-rings are very thick. So O-ring is like a 1/16 of an inch, 1.9 millimeters, actually less. Way too thick. See, this kit, you'd think with all this selection that if you ever come in need of an O-ring, you'd be like, oh, I've got a ton of them here to sort through. No. These O-rings don't match anything. Anything that I've ever messed with. As you can see, I've had this kit for 7+ years, and there's maybe 3 or 4 O-rings that have been used out of it. And even then, they weren't perfect, but they worked. So I guess it's better than not having it, but I mean, come on. See, this one is way thicker, way too thick. I'm going to use one that's a little bit smaller. Maybe it'll stretch out and thin out, but I don't see it working. These gloves, I tell you, they're good. They keep your hands from getting dirty. Man, it's hard to do anything with them. See, that just sticks out way too far. There's no way that's going to work. $100 says this doesn't even fit down in the hole. Fits to there and stops. I think it's supposed to go much deeper than that. Yeah, it should fit down in there much further. So, let's see if I have any other ones that may work. Okay, so I dug through my mystery bags O-rings, and this little packet here produced one that's pretty close. I have no idea what those came from. Let's see, it's a little thicker, and a little smaller in diameter, but it's a thicker O-ring. So let's see. I don't think that's going to work either. It stands out quite a bit. Put this one back on and see what it looks like. This is the original one. And even though it's got a flat spot, as you can see, it doesn't stand out nearly as far. So, I guess I'll just run with that one. Such is life. C'est la vie, I believe they say. Yeah, I hate doing that. But it's not that bad of an imperfection. And I still think as much as that squishes down, it's going to seal. And it's not torn, it's just abraded in one spot. So that's how I rationalize reusing it. Also because I don't have any alternatives. And I'm not going to order that one O-ring, because as I said earlier, yo tengo no dinero. I have no money is the English translation of that one, for all of you non-Espanol speakers. Time to torque the fastener. We got it set to 5 pound-feet, which is 60 inch-pounds. Let's see if I can do this without looking like a monkey with a football, because I'm just a monkey with a torque wrench. Viola! Quick tip for those of you who may not be in the know. Always remove the tension from your torque wrench when you're done using it. Especially when it's just going to sit around for a while. It will relax the spring and help keep you from having calibration issues as the spring expands and contracts due to thermal expansion and contraction while it's in storage. Same with your calipers if you have any. You don't ever want to store them with the tips touching. You always want to leave just a little bit of a gap. The more you know. So now that the high-speed compression adjuster is assembled, I want to put a little shock oil on this O-ring, both O-ring. Yeah, I think I'll put a little bit in the body too, where the O-ring seats in yonder hole. Cooperate, please. 'Tis being a bit ornery. You know what? I should probably assemble this thing further before I do that. You were sitting up fine earlier. Stay. Alright. So we got this collar. Slides down like that. And that's really all I need to worry about. I can put the spring and the washer in after I install this. Let's try again, shall we? See this collar. There's another shim in there that just floats around. That one right there. I don't know if you can see it. This collar has to fit over that shim and all the way down onto the piston. There we go. Bingo. Now from there, washer. Of course, I forgot to lube this O-ring up. Unfortunately, I had to booger this thing up to get it off. I don't have the special tool. I couldn't make anything work, so I had to just mar it up. If it was anybody else's bike, I would not have done that, but since it's mine, and I don't really care, it wasn't a big deal. Now it's just a matter of screwing this in. Okay. Okie dokie then. Let's get this framed up a little bit, shall we? Okay, hopefully that holds. This thing is very precariously placed. So I got the high-speed compression adjuster in. And now it's time to start putting some oil in this bad boy. To do that, I'll start by putting just a little bit down here in the main shock body. And then the trick is to just bump this, and bump it until the fluid comes over into the bladder side. So it doesn't appear to be doing anything. So perhaps I have it backwards. Perhaps I should have put it in the bladder side first. A quandary I find myself in. Let's try that, shall we? Let's pour this fluid back into here. Oh, there it goes. It's working now. So you probably can't tell that I'm getting a little bit of fluid over here on the bladder side. Just keep bumping. The idea is to get everything over here, get the bladder side filled up to where the compression adjuster is completely covered in oil. That way you're almost sure to have bled all the air out. So I'll be doing this for a little while. Okay, now comes the fun part. Making a mess. So you want to pour some fluid into the bladder reservoir, enough so that fluid spills out when you put the bladder in. So I'm going to fill it up to about within an inch from the top. Now, got the bladder deflated as much as possible, so this should make a mess and overflow. Yeah, it's going to for sure. Oh, lovely. Did a great job of avoiding all the precautions I had in place to keep everything from making a mess. Great. Okay. Get down in there. Get down. Yeah. Just using my thumbs. There we go. Squeeze that puppy down there like that. And man, I made a mess. All over my shoes. Everything. Put your snap ring in. Be sure to squint your eyes. Keep them safe. There we go. Make sure that ring is seated everywhere, and it is. And I can't remember which one of these marks I wanted the Schrader valve to point to. We'll put it at this mark. That looks like a good spot. If I can twist it. That'll do, pig. Now, we use just a shot of air to overextend the bladder and seat this up against that circlip. There's only like 20 psi in the tank. There was 20 psi in the tank. There still is. So, why no seat? Must need more pressure. I'll go put some more in the tank. Okay, take 2 with 40 psi. I guess that's seated. Sure doesn't act like it. I don't understand. Usually they just pop up there. This one didn't. Which concerns me, but I'm just going to keep on keeping on. That's all you can do, right? It looks like it's seated. So now, you want to fill the shock body up a good bit. It's probably 1.5 inches from the top. And then insert we've got to bleed this. I may have gotten a bit too much in there because it's wanting to make a mess. It did. I'm going to let out just a little bit. That should be good. And you want to work this back and forth till you get all the air bubbles out. There's tons of bubbles in there now. Okay, now a trick. I've bled this to where there's no more air bubbles when I move the shaft up and down. So now the next little trick is to take a dead blow mallet like this or a rubber mallet, anything, make sure it's clean as you can get it. I got all the loose stuff off. And you just hit the end of the shaft. And what that does is that that causes, it's a high-speed impact that causes the shim stack to open just a little bit to potentially bleed out any air that's still trapped in there that you can't really get out with slow motions. So we'll just tap this a couple of times. Oh, bunch of air bubbles came out. Bunch more. And I'm going to keep doing this until there's no more air bubbles. And that should let you know that your shock is pretty well bled. Still a couple. Give them some time to mosey their way to the surface. And be sure also when you're bleeding the shock like this that that little hole that I was telling you about earlier where the rebound shaft lives, don't let that thing come out of the fluid at any point. You can potentially reintroduce air into the system and you have to keep bleeding and bleeding and bleeding. So take note of that. Okay, I'm not seeing any more bubbles now. We'll call that good. Now I've got this shock body filled up to about right there. So it's time to make a mess again. Just put a little preemptive measure in place just to catch the worst shit. Son of a bitch. Shit. That didn't work very well. I'm going to use this old rag. That'll do. Top that bad boy back off. I'm sure that's going to spill over. That's kind of what we want when we put the seal head down in here. Alright, it's overflowing. Let's just get them all down while we're doing it. When will I learn? Golly. I mean, this is bullshit. I've never had one that was this difficult. Okay, it took some doing, but I won that battle. So now, use my nitrogen tank to charge this bad boy up. So get the nitrogen turned on. Yeah, hard to do with one hand. And there we go. It would probably behoove me to hook it up to the shock first. Got my no loss chuck here. First of all, need to let all the air out of the shock. Screw the chuck on. Now I've already checked, and the shock has smooth motion. The stroke is smooth, there's no gaps, nothing that would indicate any air in there, or anything put together incorrectly. Alright, now that's hooked up. Now let's turn our nitrogen on. That should not have done anything, because I didn't have this screwed in. Why is this acting a fool? Makes no sense. Let me figure this out. Okay. Got the nitrogen on, I've got it regulated to 145 psi. So now, when I screw this in, the shock should now be charged with 145 psi nitrogen. So, now that it's charged, you sweep this back out. That closes the Schrader valve. Turn your nitrogen off, and screw this fitting. And you're going to lose some nitrogen. You're going to lose whatever is in the line, but it's no big deal. That, my friends, is a fully rebuilt shock, ready to go. Let's test it. Yeah! It's good to me. Now we just install this cap and make sure that you have these holes. There's a hole on either side. Have them lined up with the eyelet up here, so that the hole is at the lowest point of the shock so that it can drain. That's it. Put the spring back on. We're good to go. So now, give this cap a little tap-a-roo. Get my holes lined up. tap it in. Just tap it in. Make it a point not to hit the shaft when you're doing this. Okay, now time for the spring. So your spring goes on like so. Make sure you have all your adjusters bottomed out. You need all the room you can play with that you can get. Collar like so. Put the bumper back. That'll hold that. And that's it. There's your shock. Now all you gotta do is put it on the bike and set the sag. If you were smart, on the front end you would have marked this. But I'm not, and I'm a different weight now than I ever was before, so it'll be starting from scratch. So I'll run this down a little ways, get some tension on this, and then set the sag once I actually get my gear on and get on the bike and everything.